And it's recording. Matt, do you consent to being recorded?
Yes, I do.
Just making sure we're all legal here. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of THPStrength. We are on episode 41. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple different topics, mostly related to plyometrics, dunking versus track and field. We might get into match training a little bit, talk about some plyometrics. We'll see kind of where the conversation leads us. But yeah, Isaiah is actually out right now. He is currently swimming in a spring of sorts, I think, or something like that. I don't know, but he's busy. So he's like, hey, I won't be able to do it today. And I was like, all right, that's okay. I can handle it. Plus, I post it on my YouTube anyways. And we try to commit to Tuesdays and Thursdays, but it's really just turned into once a week now, which we're going to try to do better. But we are busy making sure we coach the athletes that we currently coach, which again makes it tough to balance and make sure we get in all the other extracurriculars, if you will. But anyways, today, Matt is going to be joining me. We're going to be talking about some of those other topics that I discussed. But I guess we'll kind of get into it first with my training. I have some questions for Matt. I haven't asked these questions yet, but it'll be a good place to start. So yeah, if you guys don't know, recently I've been building into more hopping. I've been doing more bounds and things like that. For a little while, I was on the curve on the center circle, and just, I guess, one of the things I realized about doing the center circle is kind of tangential, or not really, because it's related to my training, but your hips on this, and Matt, you can talk about this, but how your hips work on that center circle, like the lateral hip, because you're basically having to stop your momentum from floating out of the circle. So the outside leg, I've noticed, that hip is working really hard to keep you on the curve or keep you on the circle. So whether you're doing bounds or you're doing straight leg bounds or skips or whatever else, after the first couple times of doing it, I noticed like, damn, like my hips are really sore on the outside. And I know you had talked about this. You were like, yeah, I really want to address your hips. That was something really early on that we talked about a lot. And I was like, okay, like I don't really understand this, but as I've been training more and more with you, I've realized like, oh, the hips are massively important in single leg jumping, obviously in double leg jumping too, but as a high jumper, it's probably one of the most misunderstood or under discussed areas with single leg jumping or unilateral jumping in general, in my opinion. A lot of people talk about the knee. And I talked to Thomas about this as well. If you guys don't know, Thomas Kortenbeck, he's the national, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, national Denmark, Team Denmark, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, the national coach for Denmark.
Yeah, and so he works with Yannick Clausen, who, if you guys haven't seen, he's like a freak of nature, basically mini Stephen Holmes, and a couple other guys, and he's just really, really talented athletes, and Thomas is really successful in making them better. But talked to him about it a bit, and he was like, well, the knees, like breaking horizontal forces and all that stuff, and I was explaining to him, like, I've experienced that. In my experience, what I've learned over the last couple of years is how important it is to drive from the hip. So all that said, I guess kind of go on about why, or was that your goal with it, or is that just something I noticed, and kind of what are some changes that you've seen for me as an athlete, talking about being wired from the hip and what that looks like?
Well, going back to the curve and like us having a conversation about why your hips were sore and everything like that, and when I look at the inside leg versus the outside leg, so if you're a left foot high jumper, then your left leg is the inside leg and your right leg is the outside. But for you, obviously, we're working on the flip of that. So your right leg is on the inside. And for me, that is the driver of steering, being able to put your body in the right position. And your outside leg, it tends to be more propulsive. It gives you, it continually drives you around the curve. Like now, realistically, I would always kind of say that actually your inside leg or your takeoff leg is going to be the one that kind of sits on the midline. You're going to try and want to run that on the line, and that leg is almost going straight up and down all the time as you run a curve. That left leg kind of carries round. Now, what that does in terms of how that orientates your hip, I think you have so much more that happens with the oscillation of your hips at that stage. So I can imagine the right side, like high in your right glute, is probably quite fatigued.
Yeah.
Your left hip flexor was probably feeling it as well, like up in the front in terms of how you're driving off of it.
Yeah, I noticed it honestly, I noticed because I go both ways. So like I noticed it on both sides, but there seems to be a little bit, or in terms of coordination, there's definitely like a little bit of a disconnect between my right and my left leg. Like I seem to be really strong. I thought about this a lot. So I've jumped off my left basically my whole life, right? I didn't start jumping off my right until I was 24 or 25, and I didn't even do it that much because I kept running into injuries because I didn't do it growing up. So I had to adapt to it. It took me years to adapt to it. And now I can finally handle a decent amount of volume. And even then I don't push it super hard because I'm afraid of getting hurt and I have to really build into it. But it seems like my right quad is super strong. My left quad is not as strong, but my calf on the left side is insanely powerful and coordinated and stuff. Like my lower leg on the left side. My right leg is not as coordinated, not as strong. It seems like it has more mass, but it's just not like I don't get the same pop and explosiveness from that leg. It feels like I'm actively pushing where my left leg just feels so effortless and powerful. And even when I do single leg calf raises, I can feel it, especially really heavy. My left leg's just stronger, my calf. And then at the hip, it seems like my right hip is stronger, but for whatever reason, I'm almost more coordinated on the left side. So like if I were to do a hip thrust or a reverse lunge or something like that, I would, well, actually in the reverse lunges, I kind of realized this, but what I think actually might be happening is I feel it in my left hip more on certain exercises because I don't use my quad as much. I actually probably driving from the hip more, and therefore I feel it more, as opposed to the right leg. I have more contribution from my quad, and therefore my hip is actually getting loaded less because my quad is so strong. So I kind of noticed like a couple of those differences. And so obviously I've been trying to get my hip as strong as I can on the right side, and it is getting way stronger. Like my glutes are sore today from the reverse lunges. I love reverse lunges. It's probably my favorite exercise right now. But yeah, I just as a whole, I've been sore on the curve, and it stresses my feet a bit for sure. But I think it's a good thing because as a high jumper, you're dealing with all those like lateral forces as you plant into the ground. I don't know if that's another thought behind it, but
yeah, I actually had a conversation with my mentor Eric today about the curve and what's happening with the foot and how a lot of guys are actually jumping at speeds they potentially don't need to be jumping at because of how much they underutilize their penultimate or their, what you might say is their outside leg or their unfavored jumping leg, and how that moves. And I think that's all relative to how they use their feet on the ground and their ability to pivot over the foot. So you see a lot of guys that want to bomb round a curve just to be able to say, do you know what, I need to get that force into the takeoff leg because I'm losing so much of it on the penultimate stride. So we talked around that a little bit and about how ineffective some people, even world-class jumpers, and I think that they don't necessarily need to be moving at the speeds that they actually are moving at to say clear 2 meters 30. You might say that you need to be running over 7 meters per second. We had a conversation where throw caution to the wind, and actually we don't think that half of these guys necessarily need to be running at those high-end speeds. Obviously, they're still going to be running quick, don't get me wrong, but we think that there could be a lot more in terms of rhythm. You watch someone like Derek Druin, and he's able to run off of his penultimate so well, hence why he's able to jump almost on the forefoot of his takeoff. So with what the feet are dealing with, and I think the overuse of things like U-turns, so a lot of guys use those ripping U-turns, and I'm like, but how does that change the way that your feet are put down on the track? Because the faster I run, the more lean I'm going to get. The centrifugal force is going to require me to lean further. So actually the positioning of my feet continually starts to do this.
Yeah.
And does that waver away from my actual high jumping? I think it probably does. So your feet specifically strong for running on a curve. And as we've done, we've started plyometrics on a curve. We've started lighter plyometrics on even like tighter radius. So real tall. It's still moving on a really small circle, but it's getting that foot used to what it feels like to have that lateral force all the time. And then you think, if that's the force I'm getting at the foot, it's probably going to be exponential as it goes up the hip when we go to faster speeds. It's just a big emotion. The higher you get up the chain, the more movement you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about the actual forces at each joint, but I know for sure that the faster you run, like the more you have it across the entire system. And I think like my feet are definitely adapting. Like I know that my outer foot will be sore sometimes if I do straight leg bounds on the curve or I do runs on the curve, or my feet will be sore from doing those sorts of things. But like I don't necessarily, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I think it's, there's a limit to adaptation in a sense, right? Like if you're actually getting hurt because you're pushing so hard that your body can't adapt or recover in time, then that's beyond the point of what your capacity is. So for me, I think I don't mind a little bit of soreness in my feet, or honestly, like sometimes in my bone or whatever else, because I'm like, as long as I offload this and I kind of know where the limit is and if it's going to get worse or better in 24 to 48 hours, I know the recovery timelines for each of the systems in the body. So I know if it's too much or too little. And I think between the two of us, we've been able to make a really robust plan because I will make the adjustments where I kind of need to. And I mean, sometimes I do dumb shit. Like last week, I bounded way more than I should have, and I blew my back up. Like it just was way too much, and I'm still paying for it. But I've been able to get through all of the volume this week, making some adjustments and moving some days around and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's I've definitely noticed that at the hip and the foot, but I am adapting to it, which is good. And I think
with what I say as well is you'll say to me, I'll say like, how was the curve session? And you're like, Jesus, my feet are like killing me. They're like when you're dealing with really fine musculature, you get that kind of, it's like a dull ache in your feet, isn't it? And you're like, holy shit, because I'm moving around in them all the time, even just day-to-day life, you're like, shit, my feet are real sore. Actually, it's music to my ears sometimes. I know that it's not, you haven't hurt yourself. If both feet are hurting, the likelihood is that you've not injured both feet at the same. It's very unlikely that you've done that or you've pushed it too much. It's like you say, it's using your brain to say, well, I'm definitely not going to be doing this again in the next 48 hours, even 72 hours, running on a curve. But we can adapt to it, we can change it, and actually, I can bound in the next 24 hours or 48 hours because it's straight ahead, or you're going to move to more strength-based stuff where you're going to take away the lower extremity. So again, we can kind of preach to the cows come home about athletes knowing their bodies and knowing when to push at the right time, and that being always going to be your biggest driver to becoming a more complete athlete is just learning more about your body. Don't necessarily learn about the event or the specifics of technique. Learn about yourself, because when you invest in yourself, you need to learn about yourself at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely have. A lot of this has been doing that as a whole, because I think in the past I would split up the volumes a little bit more evenly amongst the days, and now it's like I typically don't do. I've like taken out a lot of sprinting, but now I have a heavy predominance of more specific high jump work, and I think part of that is that I should have been doing this years ago, but the issue is that there were no good coaches in the States that knew how to direct, especially a high schooler, and even some of these college coaches. Like, I mean, they know a little bit, but they don't know how to progress the volumes. They don't know how to put the volumes together so that they progress from general to specific, how to add specific work without getting people hurt, how to pull away from other volumes when you add the specific work. Like, I mean, those are all crucial things that you need to understand as a high jump coach that most coaches in the States do not know how to do. And I've told you this, like, there are probably two coaches that I trust in the States that I've met or talked to, or sorry, in the world or three coaches that I trust, respect, and have talked to. And I don't know them all, but I know a lot of what certain athletes do and their experiences and things like that, just from talking to a lot of coaches. And as I hear more and more, especially from athletes who are in that system, you kind of form maybe it's a confirmation bias, but you get a better framework for what's being done at these levels. And generally, they just get freak athletes. They are naturally insane. They don't load them too much, and they just let their natural jumping ability carry them. Just jump a lot and they'll get better. But when you have someone like me who is not a genetic freak, who works really hard to be good, or maybe a little better than good, I can't afford to not have everything perfect. I can't afford to do that. Like, my nature is not the same. So my nurture has to be 20 times better. I have to train harder. I have to recover better. I have to know every little nuance of my body, because if I get hurt and lose 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'm screwed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm now losing time to these other guys that are genetic freaks. Do I ever expect to surpass them? No, but I want to get to my best for sure. And I know that that takes years. And like, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm just going to train for 2 months and I'm going to increase my vertical, whatever amount. And it's like, as a 1 foot jumper or a high jumper, that's especially not true. Like, once you pass 16, it's really hard to get better, and you really have to know what you're doing. So if you're seeing improvement and you're already super well trained, I mean, pat on the back to you. Like, that's super difficult to do. So for me, working with you and working with myself, which is kind of a weird dynamic, but obviously being able to bounce my ideas off of you, it's seeing that improvement last month or 2 months ago, whatever it was hugely motivating for me to be like, all right, I feel like I'm on the right pace. I'm not getting hurt. I'm balancing these things out. I'm doing a lot of plyo volume, which I love anyways. And I'm actually starting to improve a little bit, just slowly but surely. You can see some of the metrics changing and coordination getting better, and me looking lighter on my feet or stiffer on certain things. So, there's a big learning curve to all of those things, and you have to kind of have good direction on all of it as well. But yeah, I generally respect, like I said, 4 coaches, or three or 4 coaches. And it's you, Thomas, and Gasper. That's why we have that. We have a group chat amongst the 3 of us, or 4 of us, that I created, because I was like, look, these are the coaches that I really, really respect. And I'm sure there's tons of other good coaches, but these are the ones that I know of, and these are the ones that I know that are producing credible. They're credible sources, and that's where a lot of my continuing education comes, is from you guys too. So if you're listening to this, don't go blow up their DMs. That'll piss me off and piss them off. Don't do that. Just read their posts. That's a good place to start. I
think as well, John, which is super important, I think, especially for your athletes, is that chasing numbers all the time is I think it can be a really psychological blow to people. When you get a lot of people like, I've done this stuff for, say, 2-month block. Like, why isn't it happening numerically for me? Like, why am I not gaining numbers on my squat, or why am I not putting inches on my vert, or whatever it might be? And actually, again, it's about learning about your body, but it's about, like, for you constantly give me like, wow, the sensations that I'm getting from this is so much better. Like, I can think a bit more clearer about how I do this when I put my foot down, or I'm learning a lot more about how my body adapts to this certain stage of training, or whatever it might be. It's about you building a relationship with yourself sensationally as an athlete.
Yeah.
And I think I got taught that a lot. Like, my coach would never give me the first thing, wouldn't be information from him. He would pull information from me, because he'd want to know exactly what I was experiencing, because there's not one road to Rome, as they say. Like, you can't just say this is the way to coach it, because if this guy doesn't feel this way, then you're feeding him shit, basically. So learning about things sensationally is really important, especially for me as a coach, and as an athlete. Like, just get those little goals every week to be like, I want to feel something different this week that makes me feel positive about my jump, my run, whatever it might be.
For sure. I was talking to Jordan Koganen about this, and he's always like, I'm always on the extremes of learning how to do certain things, or I'm always on the extremes. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the way you work. That's why you're one of the best dunkers in the world. That's the same thing about me. That makes me great at coaching, you guys, and makes Isaiah great at coaching and also dunking himself, is that we're extremists. We're obsessed with it. And, that's just kind of our nature. And Jordan was like, yeah, like, I had one whole session where 2 or 3 whole sessions just off vert, where I practiced a bunch of different things. And that to me is the extremes. In training, you have to be willing to try some stuff that's a little riskier, that breaks the mold and breaks some rules. And I think that as a whole, coaching could be a little dogmatic. It can say, well, never do this, or always do this, or, oh, you can't ever plant the penultimate foot on the toe. You always have to be flat. You always have to plant on the heel. Like, I love challenging those assumptions. And I think Jordan, that's how we learn. That's how we grow as coach scientist combos. And again, when I was talking to Jordan, he's like, yeah, like, right now I'm going to do this in my life, and I'm going to see what happens. And I typically come somewhere back in the middle, and it's a balance. But I take a lot of pride in that, of being like, all right, let me intuitively see how this feels. Let me see what I like or don't like and how my body responds to it. And then I can learn from that experience. But you can't do that if you're never willing to try anything new, right? And I think like coaching and being an athlete is so much about trial and error. Like if you're committed for the long haul, you need to become obsessed with the process, and part of the process is failing. That's how you learn and know that something isn't working. And usually I learn more from those times that I fail. I go out, yeah, I might jump 5'5", but I don't give a shit. Like I tried something entirely new, and maybe there was something sensationally that happened that I can build on, you know. And like that for me, you know, that is where a lot of growth happens. If you look at me dunking, speed jumping and dunking off my right foot, my left hand, like I've been trying to do that. I've done it with a mini ball. I've never done that with a full size, or like it was a FIBA ball, but I was only using a FIBA ball so I could palm it. And that's for speed jumpers really important. And I was like, oh, I've never done this in my entire life. And as I was just repping it out, you know, just like learning sensationally about what worked. You look at my leg, it was really stiff. I'm naturally hitting positions and stuff like that. Starting to get lift, able to add more speed. My hamstring feels better, like all those things. That took me, you know, it was a massive risk even saying that I was going to switch. And that happened in 2017. It's been 3 years I've been working on that. Like, and I think me having that big breakthrough of being able to dunk as a right-footed jumper, as a speed jumper, was, again, massively motivating. That was a really encouraging thing, because prior to that, a couple weeks prior to that, I sucked. I was so bad. I like couldn't dunk on a 9.7 rim. I couldn't dunk. And then I went on a 9.11 rim and dunked, you know, a full-size ball. I couldn't dunk a freaking sock. So for me to be able to do that, I think was, again, really motivating. My hamstring felt good for it. I had a killer jumping day, and everything kind of came together for that. That was years of trial and error. That wasn't, and my goal as a coach is to learn so that I can make sure that other athletes don't have to do that. But yeah, I think that's, again, a testament maybe to the training working and being willing to take those sacrifices to get better over time as someone who isn't a genetic freak, obviously. So yeah, I mean, all this stuff has been fun. I think I do have some questions for you. For those of you who don't know, I did talk about this. We were doing a lot on the curve. I've still been doing some on the curve myself on certain days. I think I texted Matt what generally my plan is, and he's been running the training, or the Plyos specifically, which actually we can talk about this, and then I'll get into the actual questions. Matt is going to be doing a new supplementary training. It's going to be called Plus Plyos. And basically what's going to happen is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be for any sport. So if you're a basketball player, if you're a soccer player, if you're whatever, a sprinter, whatever else, like typically Plyos are really misunderstood. And Matt does a very good job of incorporating these Plyos in a progressive manner that doesn't keep you injured. It's really usually only once a week, and the payoff from doing them and the return on the investment is usually really high. And that's my experience as well with it. So we had talked about this, and Matt had been throwing the idea around a lot. But basically it was like, look, what do you think about doing supplementary training? You don't need to change anything. You just add it to whatever your plan is. Do it once a week. And I was like, you know, here's kind of my ideas about it, and hashed it out, and now shooting videos for it. I think you guys have a website. You now have an Instagram page. So go follow them. I think it's just Plus Plyos is the Instagram handle. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's at Plus Plyos is the Instagram handle. And the website is plusplyos.com. There's like a page at the moment. You just get to a landing page, and you can just put your email address in there, and we will send you an email back when the launch date is, basically. So we're piecing things together at the moment. You know, just logistical stuff. We're going to have all of our content is going to be video based. So your session is literally going to be, you can just watch a simple video, okay? And it's going to have all the reps, all the tiers built into the videos, so you won't have to do anything but take your phone out to a field and have the video ready there for you on the website. And it will be subscription based, and it's going to give you full access to everything. And like you said, it's going to have dunking, basketball. It's going to have off-season, in-season stuff. We're gonna base it at like a beginner level, starter level, intermediate, and an advanced level, and then we will just gradually build it up of how many programs we'll put together over a period of time. And as I said, there'll be soccer, American football, there'll be endurance running, track stuff. So it's going to be a massive spectrum of resources for you to be able to pick and grab as you wish.
Yeah. And so, on my end, if you're listening to this, you're like, well, I'm already one of your athletes. Like, why can't you just give me these Plyos for free or whatever? And it's like, well, firstly, I think I value people that are credible. And as a scientist, I'm not beholden to just my shit. Like, I value everything. I think everything can be of value and everything can be useful. So obviously I incorporate plyometrics into the plan, and I do that certain times a year. And Matt's expanded my knowledge, and I'm still obviously learning from him as someone who's basically getting a PhD in this. So what we're basically going to do is, if you're already currently an athlete, Matt and I really haven't talked about this, but you basically could be grandfathered into like, a discounted thing where it's like, look, if you want to do a plyo day, and we're talking very, very low cost, like, I don't know exactly what Matt was thinking, but if you're already on it and you want to add some more supplementary plyos, or maybe you're like, okay, I think I would benefit from doing a little more of these, we can talk about it. If you're one of my athletes, you have a personal direct line to Isaiah and I, and we can kind of answer those questions and see if it's a good fit. And basically, you'll just sign up for this supplementary subscription. It's probably going to be like $10 or $15, super cheap. And you'll be able to do this once a week. You'll have this maybe instead of your sprints or whatever else, you'll have a supplementary plyo. And then again, that's if it's appropriate at the time, obviously. But and if it works out for you as an athlete, because there's a lot of considerations for plyometrics as a whole, which obviously Matt's taking into consideration as well. And if you're doing the volumes that I already prescribed, that's why, because I give a shit ton of work. But then if you're a new athlete, what we're thinking about doing is we'll basically have a separate tier where it'll be like, hey, look, you'll get essentially tier 1 coaching, and then you'll get the supplementary plyo thing. You'll get a code from us that'll give you access to Plus Plyos, is generally what Matt and I agreed on. And it's a way that that I can help Matt out for helping me. And also it's something that I do endorse and I believe in. And if you guys know anything about me, I basically don't endorse anything because I am incredibly skeptical as a scientist of what works and what doesn't work. Anecdotally and both experimentally, I'm very careful about what I would say is effective. So keep that in mind. If I'm endorsing this, it's legit. Like, I'm not going to go tell you to go buy some fucking insoles and put them in your shoes and they're going to make you jump higher, or buy some special shoes, or get gloves because that's going to help, or get some fucking resin for your hands. Like, I don't believe in any of that shit. I'm all about robust, scientifically sound, progressed training that follows all those principles. So, that's kind of what I've experienced as working with Matt. And then I also was like, well, this would be a good way to integrate this for my athletes, that would make them improve, and also kind of, break up monotony in some senses at certain times of year. And maybe if they're a one-leg jumper, there's some things I want them to do that Matt probably will do a better job and give higher quality information to them that is going to be more comprehensive. Whereas for me, it's like, look, I have all these things I'm trying to do. Plyometrics are, as a whole, very complex, and I can't just simplify this and put this in here. So it'll be a good way for me to integrate that for athletes, like I said, that it's appropriate for. So that all said, on to the actual plyometrics that I've been doing. I've been building into a lot of hops and things like that. And I guess what's your logic behind putting in the hops and these, I guess you call the middle tier. I don't know when they move up to stiff tier, the high tier plyos, but what's the logic or the progression in putting those in at this time?
The quick answer to the progression between the medium and the ping stuff, or the real high explosive stuff, is normally just becomes a maximal effort of it being, the shortest ground contact time and the most force that you can exert. The medium tier becomes a little bit more relaxed. It becomes kind of, you should be able to, top sprinters in the world where you can see their cheeks relaxing and they've got a lot more relaxation. And there's a bit more grace to it and things like that. So it's sub-maximal. We're still moving, don't get me wrong. When you do medium tier hops, you still know about it, right? It's still an intense movement.
It feels harder than some of the stiff plyos, I'm not gonna lie.
So I put a little post out there, and you can read it on my Instagram about hopping and why I'm quite passionate about hopping as to it being I think, the most athletic movement that you can do. It's the most dynamic, difficult movement that you could possibly do. And the reason being is because, and I mentioned on the post that if you're to break down the two unilateral movements that you do in plyometrics, you've got a hop, which, if you guys don't know what I mean by a hop for me, especially within plus plyos, will be a left leg movement that lands back on the left leg. So it's just that left leg, left, 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 or right, 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 right. And a bound on the flip of that is alternating left to right, left to right. So those two movements are split for me into bipedal and unipedal. Bipedal means like we are bipedal animals. Humans are 2 foot. We move around on 2 feet all the time. There aren't many unipedal animals in the world. You have fish, or you could say swimming mammals, so things like dolphins, and they don't move very well on land, as you may know.
I may know. I've never pulled one on land, but I feel like they don't.
Watch a sea lion try and hop around.
I haven't seen many sea lion walking around my neighborhood, so I'm assuming they're not very good at getting on land.
So the animal kingdom doesn't really want us to be moving around on one leg. So the reason being is because, for one thing, we have to continue kind of locomotion and movement in the same kind of ground contact speed. So the time that we spend on the ground, it realistically needs to be as quick as it is when we bound. And in order to do that, you have to cycle your leg at twice the speed, so the limb is moving at a much faster accelerated rate. So with that comes much higher ground reaction force. If you chuck your foot, if you punch something and then punch something harder, believe me, your hand is going to hurt a lot more when you hit it the second time. So it's exactly the same. You're exerting so much more force when you move something quicker in striking the ground. So hopping becomes this, it almost becomes this doubly overloaded version of a bound. It's not, in terms of its numbers, with actually reading things through things like a force plate, but it's pushing the boundaries of being able to apply force and deal with certain levels of force at super high speeds. So the reason why we're integrating that for you, John, at the moment is because, dealing with those forces of the lower leg and how your hamstring deals with it, and then what your body does in terms of the sway of your hips. So when I whip that leg back down, there's going to be such a twitch with the hips and what's happening there. So if I'm off balance, you'll see a bad person that hops, a person that's bad at hopping will lurch to the side. Okay, and you'll feel that. You're like, oh, I want to get out of that lurch. I want to stand up tall. That's because your body is co-contracting so hard for you to be like, oh, I need to favor this leg and give it some help by changing the center of mass.
Yeah.
The optimal hop realistically would be actually keep your legs in the same position, and for you to be able to just pick that leg up and keep your hips level. You have that bowl of water around your hips. You use that cue. As soon as you tilt that, you're bleeding.
You hear I've heard like a bowl of fruit. Imagine your shoulders and your hip axis is a bowl of fruit. Don't let the fruit fall out of the bowl.
Any tilt of axis, yeah. So the best hoppers in the world, you watch a triple jumper, they don't take all of that force and lurch into that side. So they don't, if they're hopping on their left leg, they don't lurch onto that on their, kind of reduce the distance between their shoulder and their hip. Okay, they keep tall, they're able to accept the force through the whole chain and continue motion. So
I think it happens a little bit. I'd say, like in my experience, like you still see obviously the shoulders are oscillating, undulating.
Of course, yeah.
But it's not this like over rotation where they're gonna fall. Like if you see a lot of women in middle school or high school, that's like where you'll most times see it. They can't accept the forces appropriately at all. It's like what I've observed.
That's the beauty of hopping as well, is it's really self-regulated. Is you can see, like, people can cheat bounding, and I've always thought that a little bit. You can think, oh, that guy's moving really nicely, but actually, if you were to put that under the microscope and measure what he's doing, the likelihood of the force that he's putting through the ground would be nothing in comparison to if he was to get out and hop. You can't stop yourself from throwing your leg in the ground, because that's the thing that keeps you upright and it keeps you moving along. So it's a real self-regulating movement, which I love. And don't ever think that it has to be this humongous thing that you do from a full approach like people do in a triple jump. It's nothing like that. It can be, how many variations of hops do I give you?
I have a lot of them. I do right, left, right,
Exactly.
left. Pick
But
up
we do
in place, or
we do balance ones where it's slower. We do swan hops where you're at tilt.
yeah, those are a little bit easier. I feel like the hard ones are where you like the triple jump ones. Those are the ones that I'm like, holy hell. That's why I like working on them, because they're hard. But the lower leg strength that you need to do them is just like, honestly, it's insane. That's the biggest difference I've noticed. Like, is the lower leg strength for bounding. Like, I used to bound. I used to be a triple jumper in high school, and I was a right, left guy. Now my left leg is like exponentially better, and I'm like, shit, I want to get my right leg back. So that's why I did a bunch more reps, and I'm paying for it. My back's so freaking sore. But yeah, I think I definitely noticed like my left leg, it almost just feels like more stable. Like, is the only way I can describe it, and I'm able to like push off of it because it feels stable. Whereas I come down the left, and I'm like sometimes I'm not anticipating the ground appropriately, and sometimes that's the issue. And then other times I just feel all of that load on my lower leg. Like, I just feel it in my shin and my foot and everything. I'm like, shit, I can't push off this. Like, I want to, but I cannot do so. Like, I need to get stronger. I need to get more coordinated with it. So
you don't have the stabilizers that you do in your left that you probably gain from tons of left foot jumping. That's normally
I 100% agree. I think that's exactly why. But I think I've noticed this, and this is actually a good anecdote. So when I first started jumping off my right, I didn't jump off my right for years, literally years. I'm talking 24 years of my life. I did not. I sucked at left-handed layups. You would not see me jump on my right foot. And when I started building back into this, some people say, oh, you always need to be jumping off your right foot. I know I did triple jump and stuff, but some people say, oh, dunk off your both plants, all plants, stuff like that. I don't agree with that. I think that, like, generally speaking, if you want to get good at one thing, just like do that thing, that specificity. You can add volume tons of other ways, but there's nothing inherently special about jumping off the other leg. It's just maybe you add a little more volume. Maybe you want to jump more because you're obsessed with jumping like me. Maybe you're trying to learn to speed jump, and then it's advantageous to do that. So there's a lot of different reasons why. But, for Plyos, or I guess back to what I was saying is, early on when I was jumping off my right foot, dude, I used to get the worst shin splints on takeoff. Terrible shin splints. It felt like, do you ever have like a low box and you just stomp on the low box and push up? That's what it felt like. It felt like all the energy just compressed the shit out of my arch, and like I just went flat footed and pushed up, and like that was the first, probably, it took me roughly 3 months of just doing bounds, doing single leg jumps, doing hops, things like that, to coordinate my lower leg to be able to handle the forces with just a 1 foot takeoff, like a 3-step takeoff, a high jump takeoff, and handle those lateral forces. And I think like what I learned from that experience is that your lower leg is subconsciously coordinated from doing those exercises. Like, you can't teach yourself. There's nothing I could actively tell myself, and I'm very coordinated at actively doing things to be able to do it. It subconsciously, my body figured out how to coordinate my lower leg to stabilize my ankle joint and stabilize the knee joint and the hip. So I was able to coordinate the movement and push upwards. So as I kind of like, and I didn't know how to speed jump at first. I had to learn how to speed jump while I was doing this. So as I figured it out and as my body got coordinated, and the same thing happened with my hamstring. My hamstring, I've just had to get a shit ton of reps before it knew how to coordinate. And I had to just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and getting reps in to subconsciously form that coordination, because coordination is so finely tuned for jumping. Muscles are on and off and synchronized so fast and in a different order that you can't actively teach that. Your body is subconsciously pre-contracting before you hit the ground at certain points, and co-contracting, which means both muscles on both sides are contracting, to be able to get you to jump high. And I think particularly, it was, if I had to guess, it was the deep muscles, like my soleus could not pre-contract, and my gastroc and my tibialis anterior could not pre-contract prior to hitting the ground in those single leg jumps. And now I think the same thing is kind of happening in hopping. So I know, this might suck right now. My shins are a little bit, it's not the best, but I know if I just do more of it, I'm going to get better at it. I'm going to subconsciously learn how to do it. I'm going to get stiffer in that movement, and I'm going to improve. So I know that now, and as I'm working through it, I'm like, oh man, this is going to take a while, but I know that it's going to be well worth it in the end. And for me, I tend to be like Jordan, I tend to be an extremist. So I'm like, oh, bounding, I want to get better at this, and I just rep the shit out of it until like ad nauseum, and I'm like, oh, that was probably not a good idea. But
that's why I'm here to rein you in, man. I'm here to rein you in at certain points. Just say, okay, all right, that's why we need to back off. Like you've got a sore back. Let's chill this week. We can bring the volume right down, or the intensity right down. You can maybe have little bouts of volume in there, but
yeah. And then I jumped yesterday for like, I don't know, on the curve. I did all the takeoffs, and like, that probably wasn't smart. But that was actually a change, because this is a lesson for you guys about injury. Generally, I believe this is get your plan B or plan A as close. Sorry, if you're hurt and you can't do plan A, get plan B as close as possible to plan A. And so I was like, look, I cannot, no way I can do this intensive tempo. There's a 0% chance. I can barely walk in the beginning of this workout. I do some scuba kill, back exercises, it like warms up my hips a little bit. Finally, I can walk. I'm like, well, that's a good start. I can walk. And then I was like, I'm doing my A-skip, still hurts. I'm like, well, I'm gonna do some more exercises, whatever else. Now I can jog. I'm like, let me just start with some straight leg bounds on the curve. Let me just try to do this instead of the intensive tempo. I can't run at 85, 95% right now, but I can run at 20% velocity and do straight leg bounds. Do that. Feel good. All right, let me try high knees. All right, feel good. My back's warming up. Then, my plan B all of a sudden is actually more specific and a better plan A than my initial plan A. And I'm like, oh, perfect. So I think the way that if you have a pulled quad, or you've got a calf issue or lower leg issue, find a way to do something isn't going to bother you, but it's still going to be really beneficial. Or try to get it. Okay, maybe it was dribble runs. I couldn't do dribble runs. I was like, okay, now I'm on plan C. Like, I'm gonna do plan C, and that was all right. Let me try to do some stuff on the curve. It's something different, but it's still going to give me elastic contacts. It's still specific, whatever else. And then I'm full out jumping, and I'm like, oh well, I was going to do this anyways, but now I actually can do it like today because I had to move some days around. So that all said, I think that would be a general rule of thumb. But yeah, Matt always does a good job of being like, all right, let's chill out here. Let's try to do this. So we'll see tomorrow. I'm going to try to do the Plyos session you wrote up, but it might move back to Saturday. I'm sure as shit not jumping this week. There's a 0.000% chance I'm jumping this week. I hurt my back doing between the leg attempts, by the way, for anyone listening, because I'm working on that dunk down. That I hit a windmill. The only next logical explanation, or the next logical progression, is between the legs. But I did it off the dribble, and I'll never do that again. So
it's just a windmill under the leg, right?
Yeah, just that simple. Except not at all. And it's off the dribble too, which is tough. But we're actually past the time that we wanted to talk. I know I talked a lot, which maybe I know some of you guys criticize, but it's my fucking podcast. So fuck you. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, yeah, there's maybe one other question that I have for Matt that I wanted him to answer in regards to kind of the plyos and stuff like that. But where in the future, kind of where are we looking to go, or at what point of the progression or continuum are we at right now? And what in the future are we doing right now? We've done, for those of you that don't know, we've done some stiffer stuff at first, then we moved to some medium tier. We've added volume. We're kind of building up through this progression, adding in more curve work, doing plyos on the curve. Now we're doing a lot of hopping, which I think is very intense and bounding. I guess, what is your assessment of me as an athlete early on when you did that, and then, why we did that, and what's the progression moving forward? Did you think I was robust, not robust? Do you think I was a pussy and I needed to get better? What was your...
You surprised me a little bit with how good you are bilaterally, because you were like, oh, I'm not a 2-foot jumper or anything like that, but bilaterally, when you're tall and stiff, you kind of mop up volume quite easily, which was interesting to me. And then I just kind of chucked a load of deep tier stuff at you, didn't I? And you were like, yeah, this is good. I'm enjoying this. And then it was kind of like me being intrigued to see where your right foot whether it could handle the load that we were trying to introduce. And like I said, we kind of pushed a load of medium tier stuff on you. A load of ping tier stuff. And now I'm kind of I wanted to bring in more medium tier stuff that, although it seems intense at the moment, like the hopping will seem definitely intense at the moment, but I want to make that more of a volume-based workout eventually. So it will be like your bread and butter stuff when you, maybe 2 months down the line, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I've got like 3 sets of kind of 20-meter hopping on each leg. Well, I'm just going to mop that up, and that's going to be totally fine with me, because realistically my lower leg can just handle that amount of force and that volume. That then, for me, I'd like to kind of look at the like trajectory of where that then goes. And for me, that becomes you being able to do a lot more unilateral ping stuff. So doing like ping, like hops for height, like pick up hops for height. And then it becomes this big push into making it more specific towards your event. Like, can we get you to hop on a curve? Can we get you to do maybe 3 or 4 strides into consecutive hops? Can I get you? I love this drill. We do what we call hop step pop. So if you're going to be taking off your right foot, I get you to go left, and then you take off. We did a bit of that before, but I want you to bring this new essence of your ability to be able to really hop, and you're building that at the moment, of just being super confident, really resilient in how you hit the ground, and actually making that a lot more specific towards your takeoff. We're always going to keep in there the light stuff, the deep tier stuff, because I think that's great for just tissue resilience, and it just continually builds your armory of being able to say, actually, I can do ping tier hops easy. I can do a ton of volume for medium tier stuff, and it's just going to build so much robustness to when you get to your takeoff stuff. So when you get to the high jump apron, you're like, I can do like 30 takeoffs with a speed jumpers based takeoff, and it to be nothing. That's just what I do, and it enables me to jump more.
Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely already happening. Like, I mean, you know this, and I've showed you this. Like, I put a shit ton of contacts in my training, whether that's running or like doing extensive plyos. I kind of like to mix some things in, and I mean, had I not dunked, I would have been fine. Had I not done those stupid fucking between the legs, I would have been fine. You know, I just wanted to try that dunk, and I paid for it, and now I'm paying for it a little bit, but I know it's happening, like it's on the way. My body's actually handling the volumes pretty well, and I'm loading heavily on the running and lifting side of things, and I'm still chewing. I mean, you can look at my last post. I'm just chewing up volume. That's what I'm calling it. Like you said, mop it up. Like for me, I can do the stiffness, those alternate stiffness hops. Like those for me, easy money. Like that's like probably my best plyo, I'd say. Like maybe 2 foot stiffness hops that'd be good, but those alternate ones really good. My vertical bounds for height are getting way better. I'm actually like stiff now. My leg is like pretty stiff. I'm not bending and amortizing of the knee and the ankle a lot. I'm driving from the hip a lot. My hops I don't have the coordination with the hops yet. Like I want that free leg to come out long the same way that triple jumpers do, but I think a lot of that's related to the fact that I'm doing them repetitively and I don't have enough speed really yet, but I'm definitely getting, and it's a really soft surface, which makes it hard to like push off sometimes. But I'm definitely moving in the right direction with all that stuff. Like it seems like as a whole, I'm just getting a lot more resilient with plyos. Like, you know, my knees aren't really, I mean, sometimes they'll act up. My Achilles is 20 times better than it was early on for sure. You know, I'm doing a plyo or something elastic basically every day at this point. So I know that that's like on its way, and with the plyos and stuff, I've done bounding on the curve. I've done, you know, I haven't done hopping, like intense hopping on the curve yet, but I handle spinning. I do crazy shit. Like Matt will put stuff in there and I'll be like, I'm just going to try this. Like I send him these things. And I said the other day, I sent him this. I was like, look, I'm just going to run around the curve and do repeat takeoffs on the curve, but I want to work on the spin because I know I'm not as coordinated with that. And I know if I just, again, subconscious, if I do this, I'll get better. I sent Matt this video. It's like, yeah, I love how you just don't even care about the landing. You just fucking land, spinning, twisting. Your ACL is just getting spun up. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of the stuff I would not recommend other people do. But again, I like to toe the line. I kind of know what I can handle. I started easy and I built into it. That's generally how I do things and get coordinated with it. But, you know, if you can do a reverse dunk off one, you got to, you know, you can spin and land. So I don't even think about the landing. Some people look at my landings, they're like, it's an atrocity. And I'm like, yeah, but I've never torn my ACL. So anyways, yeah. Thanks for answering that last question for me. I was curious about that. If you guys want more detail on this, you can go to my YouTube channel. If you're watching this on the YouTube, you see the other videos. Those are the plyos we're talking about. You can kind of see my progression moving forward. I'm going to be posting those once a week. I try to post the plyo sessions because I personally am curious, and I think you guys like watching that stuff. So be on the lookout for that, and you can see that progression. If you're looking for coaching, like I said, THPStrength.com is the only option. Whatever anyone else says is ridiculous. It is the best priced, actually individualized, actually coached programming. We write for you every week. I freaking go through every day and write a shit ton of programs. It's my full-time job. And then we answer all your messages via WhatsApp or wherever else. So it is actual coaching. It is not just a program or a plan. We're looking at you as a whole athlete, and we're addressing those questions, getting you into this lifestyle of I want to be a better athlete, a better jumper, leaner, whatever else. So THPStrength.com, again, the best option. I will put my plan against literally anyone else and defend it and know in my mind that I win. So yeah, all that said, plus Plyos is coming soon. If you guys want that as a supplemental thing in my training, again, it'll be something supplemental you can do along with whatever tier coaching. If you're already on it, you'll be grandfathered into it. So no worries on that at probably a very, very small cost if you're interested. So yeah, that's kind of my tidbit about it. Thanks for listening, guys. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment, all that shit. And we'll see you next time. Peace out. And